Arabia will be formally designated a major non-NATO ally of the United States, a status granted to only 19 other countries. The White House also confirmed that the United States and Saudi Arabia have signed agreements on civil nuclear energy and a massive defense package, including future sales of F-35 advanced fighter jets. Earlier, MBS said Riyadh wants to join the Abraham Accords, but only if there is a clear path toward a two-state solution.
So definitely, we believe having a good relation with all Middle Eastern countries is a good thing, and we want to be part of the Abraham Accord. But we want also to be sure that we secure a clear path of two-state solution. And today we have a healthy discussion with Mr. President that we're going to work on that to be sure that we can prepare the right situation as soon as possible to have that.
I think we're, I don't want to use the word commitment, but we've had a very good talk on the Abraham Accords. We talked about one state, two state. We talked about a lot of things in a short period of time. We'll be discussing it further too. But I think you have a very good feeling toward the Abraham Accords.
Yes, definitely, Mr. President. We want peace for the Israelis. We want peace for the Palestinians. We want them to coexist peacefully in the region. And we will do our best to reach that day.
President Trump said the F-35 fighter jets being sold to Saudi Arabia are pretty similar to the models sold to Israel. When asked about Israel's qualitative military edge, Trump said both countries are great allies and deserve top-of-the-line equipment. On reports that Israel conditioned the sale on Saudi normalization, Trump said Israel is aware and they're going to be very happy.
We're going to sell them F-35s. That's the end of the question, I guess.
So the security agreements or no?
No, we're going to have a deal. They're going to purchase F-35s. They're buying them from Lockheed, and it's a great plane. We make, by the way, the best military equipment. You saw that during the Iran little skirmish. We make the best planes, the best missiles. We make the best defensive missiles. We make the best military equipment in the world.
The IDF is formally objecting to a possible U.S. sale of F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, warning it could threaten Israel's qualitative military edge. An Air Force position paper said Israel's long-range operations depend on exclusive access to the jet. Saudi deployment of identical aircraft could undercut that advantage.
Now, a deadly terror attack took place in Judea yesterday, a combined ramming and stabbing attack at the Gush Etzion junction, which has left one man dead and 3 others wounded. More on this tragic news from ILTV's Mayan Hoffman.
71-year-old Kiryat Arba resident Aharon Cohen was killed on Tuesday in a brutal terror attack at the Gush Etzion junction in Judea. 3 others, a woman in her 40s, a 30-year-old man, and a 15-year-old boy, were wounded when 2 Palestinian terrorists rammed their vehicle into civilians and then attempted to stab them. Cohen was laid to rest last night in his hometown. A widower, he leaves behind 6 children and many grandchildren. According to the IDF and eyewitnesses, the terrorists, identified as 18-year-old Ibrahim Imram al-Atrash of Hebron and 18-year-old Walid Muhammad Khalil Sabarne of Beit Umar, arrived by car, accelerated into people standing near the junction, and then exited the vehicle with knives. Nearby IDF reservists reacted instantly, shooting and killing both attackers. Inside the terrorist car, security forces later discovered explosive materials, which were neutralized by border police bomb disposal units. Palestinian Islamic Jihad praised the attack, calling on Palestinians to escalate violence. Hamas called it a, quote, natural response, though neither group formally claimed responsibility. Medics from Magen David Adom described the chaotic scene as a serious and complex incident. Highway 60, which had been sealed off, reopened roughly 3 hours after the attack. Gush Etzion spokesperson Akiva Spiegelman said the swift response prevented an even greater tragedy. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night condemned the attack. He said in a statement, "Today we experienced another Palestinian terror attack, and we are determined to complete the war on all fronts, including disarming Hamas and demilitarizing the Gaza Strip, to ensure that Gaza will no longer pose a greater danger." In the meantime, the IDF continues to secure nearby towns and roadways as the investigation unfolds.
We are now joined by Lieutenant Colonel and Reserves Advocate Maurice Hirsch from Jerusalem Center for Security and Foreign Affairs to break down these latest current events. Thank you, Maurice, for joining.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. So, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman told President Trump that Saudi Arabia wants to join the Abraham Accords, but only with a credible pathway to a Palestinian state. Is there a shift in tone here from Riyadh, and how significant is it?
I think there is definitely a shift in really the recognition that joining the Abraham Accords, making peace as part of the Middle East, is something which is in Saudi Arabia's best interest and not only for Israel's best interest. I feel that what they're saying, that they want a real path to Palestinian statehood, is really, again, putting their own best interests in the hands of the latest Palestinian terrorist/rejectionist. And it's something which they may be paying that lip service to say, you know what, we have to say this. And that's what I hope, that they're just saying that, but they don't really mean it, because otherwise they will never be able to join the Abraham Accords, because there will never be a Palestinian leader that will actually be able to stand up and say, you know what, we've given up on our desire to destroy Israel. So that's a really, what maybe one, like a tango, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Very interesting. Now, Israel has not yet responded formally to MBS's comments. How do you expect Jerusalem to navigate demands for a credible pathway to Palestinian statehood while obviously safeguarding its own red lines?
I think it's important for Israel to say that at the moment, and whilst the Palestinian society remains indoctrinated, brainwashed, and hate-filled, and seeks Israel's destruction, there is nothing to talk about a Palestinian state. When we see the implementation of the reforms that President Trump has talked about for many years, that are now part of the UN Security Council resolution, that the JCFA is trying to talk about, well, what reforms need to be actually done and implemented in the Palestinian Authority in order to make it into a body that does not educate to hate, that no longer rewards terrorism. We saw the fake decree back in February that Mahmoud Abbas said, we're abandoning our pay-for-slay policy, and now just recently, a few days ago, he fires his Minister of Finance for continuing to pay the salaries to terrorists. Does he not know what is going on? This is just one big, very, very poor joke at the expense of the international community that seems hell-bent on buying these lies every single time. But these are the reforms that need to be implemented before there can be any discussion of whether there should or shouldn't be a Palestinian state.
Now, reports say that President Trump may offer Saudi Arabia F-35 fighter jets as part of a wider strategic package. Israeli defense officials warned that this could undermine Israel's regional air superiority. Is this a real concern, in your opinion?
This is 100% a real concern. Israel's ability to combat and to repel its neighbors has been based on its not only quantitative but qualitative, predominantly qualitative edge. And by providing the F-35s to the Saudi Arabians, we're bringing them up at least 4 or 5 steps closer to us. Our F-35s are obviously amended and improved by the Israeli technology. I think we're the only country that's actually been given that permission to make improvements into that system. So whatever it is, our machinery will still be superior to the basic Lockheed Martin version of the F-35, but it still is a major jump for the Saudis if they were to get these F-35s.
Maurice Hirsch, thank you very much for this input.
Thank you very much for having me.
At ILTV, we're not just reporting the news, we're on a mission. Every story we tell stands for truth, for Zionism, and for Israel. When you subscribe, you're not just buying an app, you're becoming a partner in strengthening Israel's voice around the world. ILTV is factual, direct, and unapologetically pro-Israel. And we need you with us. Scan the QR code on your screen right now and subscribe and stand with Israel, because this isn't just news, it's a mission. The IDF issued an evacuation notice for southern Lebanon residents ahead of a planned attack against Hezbollah infrastructure. This follows an Israeli drone strike earlier, which Lebanese officials say killed 13 people and injured 4, and targeted a Hamas training compound inside the Ain al-Hilwe refugee camp near Sidon. It was the deadliest Israeli strike in Lebanon since the ceasefire began nearly a year ago. The IDF says it used precision munitions, aerial surveillance, and real-time intelligence to minimize civilian harm. The IDF confirmed the strike, saying the terrorists targeted were actively preparing attacks against Israel and IDF forces. The army says the site was used for training, planning, and operational briefings ahead of attempted attacks on Israeli troops. The strike marks one of the most significant Israeli attacks on Hamas inside Lebanon since the start of the war. IDF sources say the facility hit had been under surveillance for an extended period, with intelligence teams waiting for the right moment when dozens of operatives were present. Tanzanians and Israelis attended a ceremony for the repatriation of the remains of Tanzanian hostage Joshua Loitu Mulel at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. Mulel was an agricultural student from Tanzania who came to Kibbutz Nachal Oz 19 days before October 7, 2023, when he was murdered, with his body taken to Gaza by the terrorists. The body was handed over by Hamas on Wednesday a week ago and taken to the Israeli Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv, who then made the identification. The handover is part of a U.S.-mediated deal under which Hamas is still to release 3 more bodies of hostages it has been holding on to. They have yet to return remains of Dror Or, Ran Guili, and Sutisak Rintalak. Meanwhile, there are reports that the hostage families forum may end weekly Saturday night protests at the end of this month. If the weekly protests are discontinued, the forum says its budget and resources will be directed towards a course of action chosen by the families of the 3 remaining hostages. We now turn to a special report from Central Israel, where specialized police units are conducting an intensive 2-day training exercise designed to prepare for the most unpredictable and high risk of scenarios in the most of the country. Israel's police are the first line of defense in the case of a major security emergency. Our correspondent, India Naftali, was on the ground as officers ran through a series of drills meant to simulate a mass casualty event in a residential area. Let's take a look.
Today, Israel's specialized police units are training for a mass casualty event in a residential area. It's something we hope will never happen, but something the country must be prepared for nonetheless.
What's taking place here today is part of a 2-day district-level drill bringing together some of Israel's most advanced police units, including Yamam, Yassam, and Magav. Unlike standard counter-terror training, today's exercise is built around unpredictability. Officers are being tested on how they think, how they react, and how they adapt when nothing goes according to plan. The goal is to force split-second decisions under intense pressure, the kind of moments that can determine the difference between life and death in a real urban attack.
We are here to train for a first urban attack scenario. Israeli police force is the first responder on all the scenes. We know that from October 7th. So we are here doing dynamic training to prepare our people for every situation that can rush to us in the real life.
On the ground, the drills are intense and highly technical. Officers are moving through streets, maneuvering around parked cars, schools, synagogues, and residential buildings. This morning's scenario began with reports of gunfire, triggering a rapid search operation. Minutes later, a simulated red alert was declared, meaning they are under rocket fire. One officer was marked as injured by shrapnel, and teams had to treat him under pressure while continuing the mission. These are not routine situations. The scenarios are designed to be messy, chaotic, and real, pushing officers to use critical thinking, check their gear, and operate in conditions that are impossible to replicate in a classroom or a shooting range. Commanders here say that timing is crucial. After nearly 2 years of constant operations during the war, this is one of the first opportunities for multiple units to spend 2 full days training side by side. They are taking the lessons of October 7th and building them into the curriculum. Because, as they tell us, what becomes natural in training is what saves lives in real life.
In a disturbing development coming out of New York City, 22-year-old cult leader Mikhail Chishvishvili has pled guilty to soliciting hate crimes known as Commander Butcher from the country of Georgia. Mikhail revealed his plot to the Department of Justice upon arrest. ILTV's Devo Klein has details on this.
White supremacist and neo-Nazi Mikhail Shikhvishvili has pled guilty to soliciting hate crimes and sending instructions to make bombs in ricin, a lethal poison, according to the Department of Justice. The notorious Commander Butcher now faces 40 years in prison for his crimes. According to his testimony on Monday, Shikhvishvili was planning to distribute poisoned candy to children at Jewish schools in Brooklyn and other attacks against minorities. Mikhail, 23, was a leader of a white supremacist extremist group known as the Maniac Murder Cult, or MKY, a violent group that subscribes to neo-Nazi ideology. Shikhvishvili was apprehended in Chisinau, Moldova, and prosecutors in the Federal Eastern District of New York Court. During the investigation, Shikhvishvili admitted not only to plots against Jews in New York City, he was also linked to several violent crimes in the United States that took place between 2022 and 2024. According to the investigation, since July of 2022, Shikhvishvili encouraged others, mostly through encrypted messaging platforms, to commit violence for MKY in New York and elsewhere. The messages included footage of beatings, stabbings, and other attacks, as well as efforts to recruit followers who have experience with explosives and biological and chemical weapons. Prosecutors shared images from the group showing men in Nazi uniforms and a masked individual holding a bloody axe next to a swastika. In his manifesto titled The Hater's Handbook, Shikhvishvili encourages acts of mass violence, a book he distributed to new recruits. Sufficient to say, this is a man New York City cannot have on its streets.
Kolel Chabad is the oldest continuously operating charity in Israel. For over 200 years, the organization has been providing food, housing, and critical support to families and individuals in need. ILTV's Lidar Gravelazi was joined by Executive Director Zalman Duchman to discuss their recent operations. Have a look.
For over 200 years, Kolel Chabad has been a lifeline for those in need across Israel, providing food, medical care, and critical social support. Joining us now, all the way from New York, is Zalman Duchman, an executive director of Kolel Chabad, to share how the organization is continuing its mission of compassion and care, especially during these challenging times. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, Kolel Chabad has been serving the community for decades, well, more than decades. What makes the organization's mission so vital today?
Kolel Chabad is the oldest continuously operating charity in Israel, the oldest continuous Jewish charity, started in 1788 by the first Chabad Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman. And we've been working through, ever since, continuously operating, serving the land of Israel, working from the diaspora, raising money within the diaspora to serve the land of Israel. Over the past 2 years, we've experienced the war, etc. And I think that what is most vital today is the continued long-term support, that we're here for the long run. During the war, there was emotional outpour of support from the lovers of Israel. And obviously, there's the flip side that we see very strongly. But those people that love and care for Israel have been there, outspoken with their voices and their dollar supporting Israel. And now that we hope that we're going to enter a time of quiet, that we have to remember that has to continue. And this is something that represents Kol Chabad specifically, that there's a lot of pop-up programs that popped up during the war, but now we're in it for the long haul.
Absolutely, for another 200 years and beyond. And what are some of the biggest challenges of those you serve that they're facing right now, and how is Kolel Chabad addressing them?
One of the most affected populations, besides the many widows and the orphans and families and the trauma, is the elderly. The elderly population, especially those people that this is not their first war, especially Holocaust survivors, that their childhood was during a war and the traumas that it affected them. People don't know, but there's over 100,000 Holocaust survivors still living in Israel. And this is really, so to speak, our last opportunity to see them off their last years in dignity. And we've been with this generation for a very long time. And I think it's it's a very vulnerable population as they age and as they get older. And even some of the most basic things of food is they are relying on non-governmental organizations to provide for them food. Non-government NGOs are much more effective and efficient at doing it, especially when you have non-governmental organizations working together in collaboration. We believe that is one of the most important populations that we focus on, especially with making sure that they have daily meals. And the reason why we could do that is because we have an ongoing connection to these, because we visit them every single day and we bring them food every single day.
So a beautiful program. And I want to ask, because I see that you've brought with you also a very special coin. So can you tell us about this coin?
I brought a special coin that was minted specially for Kol Chabad, a challenge coin. And it says on it, "Vayilbash tzedakah keshiryon." This is a verse from the Bible that he garbed himself with tzedakah.
Hold the coin up so our viewers can see. Oh, you have two. Great.
I brought two. He garbed himself with tzedakah as scale armor. The scale armor, and the Talmud explains that just like scale armor, every single piece overlaps each other. And if it's missing one piece, it allows a vulnerability in that section. Same too when it comes to the challenges of helping the poor. No one person could take the entire responsibility on their own. But no one could say, oh, my part doesn't make a difference, because every single part is necessary. Just like scale armor, if you're missing one section, it creates that vulnerability. I think a unique gift that we would like to give to anybody that wants to participate in the food security project of helping the elderly to feed elderly people. You could go to either on the QR code, I understand, on the screen, or they could go to our website.
So that's my question. If our viewers who are watching right now, if they want to help, I mean, what's the best way that they can do that?
So obviously, if they're here in Israel, we have Pantry Packers, a volunteer project where we have thousands of volunteers. But all those people that watch around the world could go to our website, or they could go to the website on the QR code, and they could sign up to be able to serve an elderly or Holocaust survivor. And the first 1,000 people to click this code, we will send them in the mail a challenge coin that says on it, that has it inscribed, "Vayilbash tzedakah keshiryon," for them being part of this scale armor, this protection of protecting the elderly, especially within their older age, in this special thing.
Incredible. So our viewers, you can scan the QR code on your screen now and donate and receive, the first 1,000 receive a special coin. Zalman, thank you again for joining.
Thank you very much.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. The White House meetings between U.S. President Donald Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman yielded a security pact and potentially $1 trillion in deals between the two nations that Trump described as great allies. The meetings also yielded an MBS declaration to join the Abraham Accords and normalize relations with Israel once there's a clear pathway to Palestinian statehood. More on this from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.